All right. We are live. Again, I was chit-chatting and we didn't go live exactly on time because I never shut up and I'm always chatting before the show starts. So, hi, welcome to Shannon Q. Let me know in the chat if you can hear us and everything's okay with the audio. I'm also notorious for really bad audio problems because I'm good at YouTube. I'm really good at YouTube. Thanks for subscribing. Click like, subscribe. It's totally worth it. I'm amazing at this. So I'm very, very excited today. We were supposed to chat last week, but unfortunately, Dave wasn't feeling very well. So we postponed till this week. And I'm really glad that you made the time for me. I'm very excited to have this conversation. And I think that there's a lot of fruitful dialogue to have with you. I love your spirit, like your sense of humor, how direct you are, and like everything about this conversation is exciting to me.
Well,
So
good.
I will throw it to you momentarily just so that people can know who you are and where to find you. And then we'll get into your story because I think that people are going to really be engaged in this. So why don't you introduce
hmm
yourself, Dave? Say hello to everybody.
Hello, everyone. Dave Warnock here. Some of you know me as Dying Out Loud, and or that's the thing I do. I don't really have a YouTube. I do have a YouTube channel actually, but I
It's
don't.
linked in the
I,
description.
I don't do much. I don't have much content, so I've got to get to work on that. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. I've Shannon Q and I have known of each other for a while. We've just never got a chance to do this.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And apparently there are audio issues. Apparently there's an echo, but I haven't the slightest idea why. It's not on my end. Okay, it's
Yeah,
fixed. It fixed itself. That's neat.
I I
Okay.
was I was hearing that too, and I thought it was maybe me having my YouTube open. I don't know.
Oh, see, it's not my fault. I didn't do it. It was David.
It's probably
It
me. If there's a
wasn't me.
problem, it's me.
It wasn't me this time. So, before we get into it, just to preface this conversation, because we're going to be talking about concepts of death and dying in the afterlife, and I think that's a valuable thing to discuss. But you're so open and brave about having these conversations, and I was wondering if you would be willing to give everybody your background and why this is a topic that you're interested in.
Yes, I would be willing to do that. I was an evangelical, charismatic Christian for 37 years. Many of those years was on staff as a pastor in a couple of different churches over the years. And so I say that to say I was not just a church attender. I was always involved in leadership and ministry and very much on the front lines, if you will, as a practicing Christian. And so all of that to say, left when I let go of my faith about 10 years ago, it was a very hard and traumatic and difficult time because it was something that I wasn't looking for. I didn't go out um, looking to be mad at God or running from God because I wanted to sin or any of those kinds of things. And I also wasn't one of those people who they say never was really a Christian, because if you can't be a Christian, I tried as hard as anyone. And if you can't do it, if I couldn't do it, then no one can. So that's my background. 10 years ago, I left Christianity and became identified as an atheist. At first, an agnostic. I was a little scared of the A word, the big A word. I,
Yeah,
I
lots of
used the
this word.
soft, I used the soft A, not the hard A.
Yeah.
But then I realized a few years ago that we need to start identifying more as atheists and take the stigma off of it as much as we can, because we're not bad people. We're not angry. We're not mad at God. We're not mean. We're kind, compassionate, loving, giving, generous people. And we just happen to not believe in a God. That's it. So that's me. That was years and years, the best years of my life as an evangelical pastor, Christian. And then a couple of years ago, or a year and a half ago, I was diagnosed with ALS, which is more commonly known as Lou Gehrig's disease, which is a fatal disease, and they give you 3 to 5 years to live. And I've had symptoms for a couple of years now. So I'm progressing pretty slowly in terms of the spectrum of ALS. I know a lot of people progress more quickly than I am, and so I'm grateful for that. And I'm just what I started doing when I got that diagnosis about a year ago is I started going on podcasts and YouTube shows like this and speaking, scheduling live events, speaking at secular communities and atheist churches, if you will, if that's a thing. Humanist, more, I guess humanist churches, if you will, humanist community groups. And that began to be known as Dying Out Loud. And I started doing that last year, and it snowballed, and I was booked up pretty much every weekend, going all over the country, even to Canada. Went to Toronto last December, and was scheduled to go to Vancouver this month. We had a full calendar before coronavirus hit and shut everything down, and even plans. We had stuff scheduled in England and Amsterdam and Germany and all kinds of places. So hopefully, I'll be able to reschedule all those things. Hopefully, I'll still be able to travel for another couple of years with this disease. You just don't know how it's going to go, where it's going to go. And so I'm going to keep planning things and booking things until my body just says you can't do it anymore. So that's a little synopsis of what I am, what Dying Out Loud is, and what I'm doing.
I'm super excited that you're here. And I've linked one of the talks that you had at, was it a Unitarian church?
Unitarian church in Minneapolis.
Yeah. And it's a really fascinating talk that where you talk about grappling with coming to terms with mortality, and especially when it becomes something that's so, immediate, and so, like you're forced to face it, and that must be something that's difficult for you to do, or it's brave to do, and it's important to engage in those discussions. So I appreciate that you're doing it. But so I guess my question is, like, are you okay?
Strangely enough, I am. I don't know. I don't know how else I would do this if I didn't have the ability to talk about it in frank terms like this, because it's not something I can go and hide from. So I had the choice early on when I got the diagnosis. How was I going to handle it? What was I going to do with the rest of my life? Not knowing how long I had. So I really decided to just mash the hammer down and carpe the fucking diem and live life to the fullest, as much as I could, as well as I could, until the end came. And then I'd be okay with that, because people have asked me over and over again, am I afraid of dying? And I hate to flippantly say, no, I'm not afraid of dying. I don't have some kind of false bravado there.
Yeah.
But the reality is I'm really not. I'm reticent to let life slip by me without me getting all I can out of it. So in that sense, I'm afraid of not living, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense to me.
There's a huge difference between dying and not living. And I'm not one of these people that ever, I never wanted to be that 85-year-old guy that took 5 minutes to get from his car into the grocery store. And I didn't want to be an old man. So I guess I got my wish. But the reality is I'm not interested in the quantity of my days, which is going to sound like a cliche, but I'm interested in the quality of my days. And so I don't care about trying to get every single minute out of every single day until, how long can I live? It's not a contest to see what age you can live to. The contest should be, how am I maximizing the moments of the days that I do have? And that's what I talk about in Dying Out Loud. In essence, it's really more of a talk about living out loud and living your best life and grabbing the moments that life brings our way. And so many of us, I have found, as I talk about these things, I'm getting more and more, I get messages from people all the time and comments in the live meetings, that talking about this kind of stuff helps them to come to terms with their own mortality, and to also come to grips with what is the quality of the life they're living. Is it what you want, or is it not? And if it's not, whose fault is that? And who's going to change it? Because as Christians, we had this notion that God was in charge, and you were living your life in subject to a higher authority. First of all, there was God, then there were spiritual authorities in your life, and all these people, these entities, were dictating how you lived your life, and you weren't able to write your own story. And as secular people, we realize that's all bullshit, and I'm responsible for my life, and I'm responsible for the quality of the story that I'm writing. And so if it's not the story you want, whose fault is that?
So many good points. Okay, so I have a bunch of questions for you.
Good.
I know the audience probably will too. So I will provide that opportunity later. If you have a super chat, it'll absolutely be read as long as it's respectful, and I'll cue you guys towards the end. Anybody who watches my channel frequently will know that that's because I would like to monopolize you first because I am selfish, selfish, immoral atheist
Huge
that
ego.
only
Huge
thinks of
ego.
myself. So,
Hmm.
so first I get to ask my questions. This is my channel and I do what I want. But I will give people an opportunity to ask questions at the end because I know there's probably a ton of questions.
Yeah.
So my first question for you is, and tell me if any of these cross the line. I hope they don't, but I know that you're open to being frank, and I want to completely take advantage of you essentially. I even got a drink because you said you got bourbon, so I got rum. um, so given the reality of the circumstance that you're in, are you happier that you were an atheist when you got the news and are dealing with this, or do you feel like there would have been a benefit to still having a religious orientation? Like, do you ever weigh that?
Well, when I got the diagnosis, I tried to go back to God, but he wouldn't have it. He said, "No, you made your choice, and so you're doomed." I said, "God, I was just kidding about that atheist thing. Come on." Um, no, I've thought about. In fact, I've talked about this, and that's a question I've been asked a few times. But um, it's much simpler to deal with these kinds of things in life as an atheist than it is as a Christian. And the reason for that is, as a Christian, at least the kind of Christian I was, and I always like to make a difference, differentiate that. It's evangelical Christianity is the Christianity that I have the most problem with. It's the fundamentalist. It's the one trying to insert itself into every part of the fabric of everyone's life, and it,
Right.
it demands that everyone think and act just like them, and everything else other than their way of thinking is wrong and doomed to eternal damnation. So that kind of Christianity, the water I swam in was with a God who was active and involved and present, and you prayed and he acted and he answered and he did things for you, and there was a will of God and a plan and all of this stuff. So getting a diagnosis like this, you had to factor all of that into it. You had to figure out, where's God in this? What's God saying? What's God doing?
I never thought of that.
And that's just fucking exhausting because he's not saying anything, for one thing. So you've got to puzzle it out. You've got to figure out what's God saying, and you got to get quiet, and you got to pray and fast, and you've got to get a team of people praying and fasting and listening. And did someone hear God? Was that God? Nope, it was a cricket. What's God saying? He's not saying anything. And so we make up this stuff. Oh, I think I heard God say this, or God told me. And then you get a multitude of Christians coming to you saying, well, God told me this and God told me that. And here's what God said you should do. And here's what God's trying to get. He's trying to get your attention, and he's trying to teach you this, and he's trying to test you in this. And so as an atheist, you don't have to figure all that out. It just is. It's just life. And I'm no more I don't deserve to not get this any more than the next person. ALS is a thing, and it hits certain people randomly throughout time and throughout life and throughout history. And who am I to say, well, how dare it come to me? Why? I'm not special. I'm just another human being. I'm another person. So I just happen to get this thing, and it's no rhyme or reason. There's no clue as to why. It just is. And so for me as an atheist, I just embrace it and accept it. Yeah, was I sad? Yeah. Am I angry sometimes? Yeah. Do I get frustrated not being able to do the things I want to do? Do I get sad or disoriented thinking I'm going to continue to lose control of my body until there comes a point where I'm no longer satisfied with the quality of my life? So those are hard questions I grapple with daily. But the idea of getting it as an atheist and dealing with it, and what now my only choice is, what do I want the life that I have left to look like? And I
Right.
have complete control of that. Not only what I do and how I do it and when I do it, but the attitude with which I do it.
So you feel as though it
So,
maybe would have encumbered you more if you had
oh
still
yeah,
had a theistic perspective, because then you would have you would constantly have been grappling with the why and the attempting to find justifications, as opposed to just being able to approach it from a perspective that, okay, this is just the blunt reality of the
yeah,
situation. Now what do I do?
yeah,
And
and
like you're
it
able to
makes
shift
it
that off.
easier to process it or process it, as you people say.
See, that's an interesting thing. As you people,
You people up
Canadian
north.
people, that's dirty Canadians. So I lost track of my question because you're so charming.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. I forgive you this time. Maybe next time I won't, but this time I do. Um, so here's my next question, and I'm sure you get this all the time. So please forgive me if you do. People have often posed it to me that they feel sorry for somebody like me
Hmm.
because I don't, if I am grappling with, an imminent demise, then I don't have an afterlife to look forward to. And
Hmm.
what must that be like? That must be awful. And they espouse to having pity on somebody like me because they have that as a hope. What do you think about that perspective?
I I laugh at that,
Interesting.
honestly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Why's that?
because let's just picture heaven for a minute.
Yeah.
And first, right. First of all,
Yeah.
the Bible is very ambiguous
Right.
and conflicted and confusing when it comes to what heaven actually is. Is it floating in the clouds with angels and Jesus and Saint Peter and a nicer version of God than the Old Testament God? Or is it a new heaven and a new earth? Is it mansions? Is it streets of gold? There's all these ideas about what eternity is in heaven, and no one can even agree on what it's supposed to be.
Right.
All of that, though, sounds incredibly boring. And I'll be honest, as a Christian, even I would think, okay, because there's parts in Revelation that talk about standing around the throne of God and singing Hosanna for thousands of years. Hosanna,
I,
Hosanna, over
oh,
and
man.
over and over again. And then other people come along and they create scenarios where there's endless golf courses because I love golf and God's going to let me play golf the rest of eternity.
Hmm.
All of that is just shit we make up.
Yeah.
So when people ask me, am I sad that there's no eternal life for me? I say, no, my God, why are you? My question back to them is, why is this life not enough? What are you doing wrong with this life in that causes you to feel like you need more than this? I feel sorry for you that you are not able to get the beauty and the wonder of this life in such quantities and sufficiency that you realize when you come to the end of it, I had a good run. That was a good life, and I'm lucky that I got to live it. That's my answer to. Yeah, and plus my and this I talk about a lot. If you are someone who believes that this life is just the warm up for eternal life, it's going to by default cause you to miss the beauty of this life. You're going to overlook the moments that you have now because you're so focused on what you think is coming. And I think that's to your detriment because you're going to miss what we do know we have in hopes of something you think you might get or you hope to get. And I find that sad for people who miss that. I really do.
Yeah. I
This
don't like
life
the
is
idea of
enough.
looking at this life as a staging area.
No, it's horrible.
I don't like. I really don't like it, and I people have yet to postulate and articulate to me a conceptualization of whatever their version of an afterlife or heaven or whatever you want to call it is that makes sense. Like if I have free will and am myself in a heaven, let's say that I convert to Christianity tomorrow and, get myself absolved of all of these atheisty sins that I've been doing all the time. All the sinny stuff I've been doing.
All the bad sinny
Yeah, all,
stuff.
all the bad sinny stuff. And I get entry into there. There's definitely people in my life who I care about that are no better or worse than me qualitatively in this life that would not be there. Like, for example, my boyfriend definitely wouldn't be there. Paul would not be there. I can't imagine being happy knowing that he was being tortured forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you would have to fundamentally change something about me to make me into something that I'm not. So I'm no longer me anymore, in order for me to not spend a life, an eternity in
Mm-hmm.
misery,
Yeah. And I think
realizing that's a fact. Like, it just, like, that alone, and then the idea of eternity isn't even something that we can conceptualize, I don't think, realistically. Like, who can be happy for eternity? Like, what would that look like?
it's nonsense. And I mean, extrapolate that out.
Yeah.
That's a big word to say with bourbon.
That's
What if
what we
you're
do
up
here.
to,
We drink and say big words. That's essentially my brand.
the longer we drink, the worse the words get, right? You extrapolate that
Extrapolated it.
out. And what if you're in heaven and you know one of your kids didn't make it? How's that
Right.
going to feel? So I think what Christians think is that God magically just washes all that away,
But then
and
there's no free will in heaven.
you don't even of course there's not. If
But
there is, they could rebel in heaven like Lucifer did in the beginning and start a whole thing over again.
like, none of it makes any sense
This
to me.
makes no fucking sense whatsoever. And so and plus, let me throw this out. If you buy into the idea of a biblical heaven, you have to also buy into the idea of a biblical hell,
Yes.
because it's spoken of simultaneously. You can't say, "Oh, heaven's wonderful. Let's just don't think about hell. Let's don't talk about that. That's the other place that's unpleasant."
Right.
The idea that the God that we would serve would create a place called hell
Mm-hmm.
for the vast majority of human population over time to end up there is a hideous, horrible idea. And I've said this several times, but I think the first time I said it was at that talk in Minneapolis that you referenced. I made the point that the evangelical theology says this, puts this position as a possibility, that Ted Bundy is in heaven and Anne Frank is in hell.
Yeah.
And I had a woman message me just yesterday, and she had just seen that, and she said it was a turning point in her deconstruction. And she said, "Oh my God, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm done. I cannot be a part of a faith that even allows that to be a possibility." And Christians can tap dance all around that idea all they want. We don't know if Anne prayed a prayer and God is the one that chooses, and who knows, his ways are above our ways and all that bullshit.
Yeah.
But their theology says that that's what the reality is, because Ted prayed the sinner's prayer, and Anne is a poor little Jewish girl who never met Jesus, sadly didn't. Bless her heart. It's just unfortunate, but these are the rules.
Right. And I
That's
don't think a lot
bullshit.
of people think about the fact that you need immediate absolution as well, based on like the criteria. So you could
Right.
accidentally forget to ask forgiveness before you go to bed at night after living a godly night. It could be a godly life. It could be the one night that you say, "Please, Jesus, forgive me for all my sins," before you go to bed. And you could pass away in your sleep and have done that every night up until that point, and you go to hell based on those rules.
Yeah, and they also created this thing called the age of accountability
Yeah.
for children, because the idea of God sending innocent children to hell before they'd had the chance to repent of their sins, all their many sins that they had at the age of 4.
I don't know. Have you had a 4-year-old?
Well,
I have.
it's been a while. You're right. It's been a few years since mine were 4. But
mine's only
but-
9 now. I still have vivid memories.
yeah, sorry to bring you back to that.
Yeah.
But no, so there's no place in the Bible in their theology that makes room for the kids. So they just create this idea that there's a mysterious age of accountability. Let's just do that.
Yeah.
Let's make that rule up. It's
so
just
much of Christianity's retcon.
It-
It's crazy.
What's that? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just they're making it up as they go along. And that's eventually I got to where I realized that, and I just got tired. I got tired of making excuses for God's poor behavior and trying to fit all the pieces together, the rabbit trail, it's too exhausting.
Yeah, it is. Like, so much of contemporary Christianity to me just seems like interpretation of the scripture that conforms with societal norms to whatever degree you're willing to go to before you hit a wall,
Yeah,
like that you just can't find a way to reconcile it. Like you'll
it
ask somebody for
changes.
justification and it'll be interpretation on top of interpretation, or they'll refer to somebody else who interpreted it that they see as some sort of scholar or knowledgeable person, but they can't actually point to a line of scripture and say,
Mm-mm.
this is why I see this as biblical,
Yeah, it's a
or
moving
portion
target
Christian.
all the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
it changes.
And if that's the case, then like, why bother? Like,
Right?
what are you doing?
I know. Why are you working this hard to make this make sense?
Yeah.
Just let it go, man. It's not that hard. Let it go.
Like before we carry on, I do want to talk to you about. So like I said beforehand, I have multiple sclerosis,
Yeah.
and one of the things that hit me was when you were talking about the bedside manner of neurologists, because I have my own story about the bedside. I've had, apparently I shouldn't drink rum either. You're a bad influence on me. Honest to goodness.
Bedside
The
manger.
the bedside manner of neurologists. So you mentioned that he just like very starkly delivered the news to you and was like, you can go down the hall and like this is where
Yeah.
the exit is. Take
Should
your
I
gown
put my
off, change your
clothes on?
off, you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, I didn't even know I was being screened for multiple sclerosis. I had something called transverse myelitis first. Well, I knew that was one of the list of things I was being screened for. And I got a phone call from the MS clinic at Dalhousie University here in Halifax. Halifax is behind me. And I was like, okay, that's weird. Like, why would I go to the MS clinic? And I still had this disconnect in my head, right? Like, well, there's probably not, like, it's probably not MS, but transverse myelitis is in the family, so maybe they follow it there. Like, so that's what I was thinking to myself. So anyway, I went there, and he opened up the thing, and he was like, well, obviously you figured out we called you here because you have MS. And I was like,
Obviously. Holy shit.
no, what kind of it? But the thing he did that was the craziest thing. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And he was like, well, let's just say you'll never pitch for the Mets. And I went, I'm a competitive softball player. I run a
Wow.
baseball league. I'm the president of a softball league. What do you mean I'll never pitch for the Mets? Like, is that supposed to be a joke? Are you kidding me? Or like,
Said this over the phone?
no, this was in person. He said this
Oh,
to
in
my
person.
face at
Wow.
the MS clinic when I walked in. And I was like, am I still going to be able to play baseball? Like, I asked that honestly because it went through my mind. Like,
How old were you at the time when you
I
got
was
this?
33. It was actually, I just hit my 5-year anniversary of diagnosis. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was like April 3rd. So I
Wow.
just hit my 5-year anniversary of getting I have progressing remitting, and like it's progressing, but not quickly. So like I'm lucky that way. Like I'm pretty active. Well, I guess I'm not that active now that we're housebound, but hopefully that's a temporary condition. But yeah, like bedside manner of neurologists, like the people that deliver these messages need to work it out a little.
Yeah, I may have forced the issue a little bit with mine because he was giving me this test and I asked him, is it conclusive? And he said, yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, are the results immediate? And he said, yeah. So I said, well, you're going to tell me then if I ask you, you're going to give me the answer. You don't give me, don't sugarcoat it. I just want to know what I'm dealing with here. And so I kind of pushed the issue. I don't even know if their MO would have been to send me home and then call me back in for a meeting. But they didn't have any therapist on hand or ready to, I guess if I'd have asked, is there a counselor I can talk to? Maybe they would have found one, but I don't know. They just kind of sent me home.
That's something that should be interesting. Like I always think about mental health outcomes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of what I do here. And when you're giving somebody a message like that, how you deliver messages is super, super important. And I understand that, it shouldn't be incumbent upon somebody that's a specialist in a certain kind of medicine to have that necessarily as a skill in order to
No,
be
it's
competent
not
in their
gonna be,
job.
right.
But there should be something else immediately made available.
Yeah, the follow-up should have been, we've got an on-staff therapist. I'd like you to go down the hall and talk to her.
Right.
Talk to him. whatever. They can answer any questions you have and give you some material to look over, something. There's the elevator. Go home.
Yeah, like this is where
Go
you put
home
your
and
gown before you leave.
go home and die. Yeah.
Oh
Jesus.
God. Oh my goodness.
Uh,
So I'll take questions soon. I promise. I'll stop monopolizing. I know there's already super chats. I know. I'm sorry. I'm a selfish person. So as you're traveling around and engaging in these dialogues, what
mhm.
is the thing from both this would be interesting from an atheist perspective that you get asked the most or approached about the most, and then from the theist perspective, what you get asked or approached about the most.
Well, I don't get a lot of theist questions.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, because the talks I give in person are at humanist or secular
Mm-hmm.
communities. And if I'm on a show online, it's again typically a secular audience. So I have not had a lot of feedback from theists. I have noticed that they don't tend to know how to engage me or what to say to me.
Mm-hmm.
I have found that within the Christian community, at least the part I was a part of, and since then, I feel like that they're not sure what to do with death. They're very uncomfortable around the subject. And you touched on it. If it's just a holding room or a staging room or a preview, it's not really death. It's just a pause until you step into eternal life. So they don't have to deal with it as a final thing. They can just kind of skip over it. And even the Bible talks about death as an enemy and something that causes fear and something that is to be defeated. Well, no, it's really not. It's just the natural result of living. It's what comes at the end of the living part of this thing we're doing. And so it's nothing to feel weird about, but Christians don't seem to know what to do with that. And they're oftentimes, I find, more afraid of it than we are. And that is a paradox to me. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I haven't had a lot of feedback from the theists. The atheists are very accepting of it. The feedback I've gotten the most, that's been the most heartening for me, and this has been in person and in messages I've gotten, is that me talking about death and dealing with it as just something that's coming for all of us has allowed people oftentimes to then embrace life in a better way, because they've made peace with death and now we can get on about living. And there's a guy named Maury Swartz. There was a book written about him years ago called Tuesdays with Maury. Mitch Albom wrote it, and I read it years ago. I did not remember that it was about a guy who had ALS, but it is. And so I reread it recently, and one of the lines that jumped out at me, Maury says, "You until you learn how to die, you can't learn how to live." And I love that, because I've made peace with the fact that I'm going to die now. Okay, that's over there on a shelf somewhere. I don't get up every day and think, "Oh my God, I'm dying." It's there.
Mm.
It's there for all of us. But mine is like a clock. We all have this ticking clock, but my clock's sitting out on the desk, whereas everyone else has theirs put away. So, but now that I've made peace with that, I can just get on with living and make the most of the moments that we have. And so those are the messages I get. And some of the people have been, I mean, some of them have been serious situations, terminal cancer, PTSD from Afghanistan deployment, depression where they can't even get out of their house, that kind of stuff. And it's changed the way they look at life. And it helps take away some of the fear of death. And a lot of these atheists that I talk to are former theists who have this fear of death and hell embedded deep in
Yeah.
them in a traumatic way that they don't even realize it's there, but it still infects the way they live. They'll have dreams about it or nightmares. And once we take the lid off of that and shine a light on it, it removes the power from it
Yeah. I've
in
talked
some
to a
way.
lot of people who are either on the precipice of deconversion or have actually deconverted, and either a fear of hell is stopping them from full deconversion even though nothing else makes sense to them, because that visceral
Mm-hmm.
fear like elicits like a physiological anxiety in them that they just can't overcome. And the only way to pull that back from the precipice and satiate that and push it back down so that it's not right on the forefront, on the pulse, like on the bleeding pulse of their reality all the time, is to just say, okay, God, and I'm sorry. And then
Yeah.
that they're literally
Yeah.
physiologically trained their brains
Yeah.
that response set will alleviate that anxiety. So even though nothing else makes sense, that neurological component is still there, and
Yeah.
and
And
they haven't been able to figure out a way to push past it.
it's an unconscious thing. I have a friend of
Yep.
mine who had who has PTSD
Mm-hmm.
after 3 deployments in Afghanistan and is actually on medical disability from the military. And he will tell. In fact, I heard him say it in a meeting. We were had a retreat a couple of years ago, and he was sharing about this, and he was weeping as he was sharing it. He said, "My trauma, my PTSD from my childhood in the Pentecostal church, and the fear of hell that was hammered down into me, is worse than my military PTSD."
Wow.
That's amazing to me.
Because that's eternity in somebody's mind.
Yeah.
So
And years later, years post deconversion, fully grown man, fully cognizant that this is not real, intelligent, highly intelligent, and still traumatized deeply inwardly from that indoctrination as a child.
do you know what frustrates me from a mental health perspective? I'm going to go on a brief rant for a second. Is because when something like that happens and somebody is physiologically having a response to something like this that's causing them trauma, people who have the religious mindset and see that as true will look at that trauma, pardon me, as evidence of truth, because they will just say, well, that's God imparted that on you.
Oh my
And
gosh.
you're like, you must have come across that. Like, you must see these types of things where
No, that would make me bang my head against the wall.
it infuriates me, because
Yeah.
the only
Yeah.
way to fully and sometimes it's not even possible to fully alleviate that, or at least to mitigate it,
That's
is to
horrible.
grapple with the fact that you're having a physiological response, understand that it's a physiological response, work through your emotional triggers, work on breathing exercises, work on cognitive exercises and behavioral therapy outcomes, so that you can figure out like what's causing that and rationalize your way through it and figure out how to physiologically, like, those are things that will actually help you. Somebody consistently telling you, well, that's a sign that you should come back to God. That's God telling you that, you like, this is what your outcome is going to be. So this is, God trying to pull you back.
Mm.
That stuff just drives me crazy, because you're just
Yeah.
keeping somebody in a perpetual state of harm
Yeah,
by
that's
doing that. And
abuse.
you're doing so knowingly, and you're purporting yourself to be virtuous when you know what you said is perpetuating the harm, because they've identified that as the source of the harm, and you just don't seem aware or to give a shit about it, because you being able to justify your own internal beliefs at the expense of somebody else is more
Yeah.
important.
Well, that's why I speak out very forcibly against that evangelical um, dogma and that fundamentalism, because it does such great harm to people emotionally
Right.
and every other way, and it needs to be repudiated at every turn. It's disgusting.
Yeah. My trigger is harming people. I don't much care for it.
No, no,
I do
don't like
not.
it.
Do not abide. I don't
Do
do
not
well
like
with
it.
it.
Not like, not like.
Do not like. Not like. Yes. So I have a couple more questions. And then, okay, you can start tagging me for questions. I'm sorry.
I'm
You
sorry.
can do it now, I guess, whatever. So I guess this might be my last question, so that people can ask questions, so that I'm not completely monopolizing you. So what do you see as the greatest benefit that's come from having this perspective? Like, to me, the thing that I've taken thus far, just to impart to you what I've taken, is the idea of the clock on the shelf. that we all have a clock on the shelf, and that you're aware of the clock more acutely than I am. But it seems like a good just bit of natural advice to all just be aware of mortality, and how, as hard as that is, and how it pertains to our perspective on how we live our life.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I'll take. Is that the most important thing that you've taken from going through this experience and having these talks and being able to go interact with people? Or is there something
Well,
else?
the mere fact that I've been able to do this is what I'm taking away.
Okay.
Bef- Before I got ALS, I was just another deconverted pastor, and those are a dime a dozen. Um, and I was just living my life, and I was an insurance broker, and I was enjoying life, and it was just I interacted with a lot of ex-Christians online and in Nashville, where I was from. And but when I got this diagnosis and started doing this, and started actually becoming more of an activist, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
which stuff you've been doing a while, and many of you that I've met, many of them that I've met the last year, I realized early on that if I'd not gotten ALS, I would not have had this platform. I would not have had this opportunity. And strangely as it sounds, I'm thankful for this opportunity, because how many of us get to make a difference? How many of us get to leave a mark like this? And I'm getting to do this, and I'm getting to have an impact on people all over the world who send me messages and are inspired by what I'm saying. And it's a simple thing that I'm saying. I don't find it profound. I don't see myself as brave or noble or any of those things that people say. I'm just me talking about things that interest me, and because I believe they are important. And so I'm oddly thankful for this opportunity. Now, did I want to get ALS? No, because I don't like where this is going,
Yeah.
and it will get ugly at the end, and I don't know how much time I have, and so I'm a little pissed that I'm going to have to leave the party early, but I am thankful that I'm getting to have this amazing party, meet people, do things that make a difference, say things that make a difference, help people in ways that I would have never gotten to do otherwise. So that's what I'm thankful for, and for the ability now to speak out about issues of death, how we die, how we don't die, what the Final Exit Network, the organization I'm connected with now, and helping people gain control of that part of their lives where so many people feel they're out of control and they're just left to suffer and die needlessly for long periods of time, hopelessly. And so, me being able to speak about that from the position I'm in makes a difference. So I'm thankful for that.
Do you want to talk about the Final Exit Network a little bit more before we start taking some of the
Yes,
audience
I
questions?
actually would have their link. We're going to link their website on mine, but they're redoing it and it's not ready yet.
Okay.
So, but it's finalexitnetwork.org, and they are a nonprofit that helps people take control of their lives and end their lives on their own terms, in their own time, for people like me who are fatally diagnosed, who are not going to get any better. It's not for people who are just having a bad day. It's for people who are medically diagnosed to be without hope and are going to get to a point where life is incredibly unsustainable and there's no quality left. And so they're a wonderful organization staffed by volunteers all over the country. I don't know if they're in Canada or not. I'll have to find that out.
Okay.
I actually have a video meeting with the president tomorrow and some of my friends.
You're so important, David.
I know. I'm just, yes. Not that president. I wouldn't do a video.
Oh, yeah.
That president.
Tell him I said that if you do.
Yeah. If he called him on the chat, I'd say no thanks.
I'm good. I'm all set. So, have you come, I don't know if many people know that you're affiliated with that, but that's something that's an interesting topic to discuss. We could probably just talk about euthanasia for...
Mm-hmm.
That could probably be a whole other conversation, to be
Yeah,
fair,
yeah.
because there's so much to cover there. And that's something that so many people in, a myriad of theistic organizations and religious organizations oppose. And it's
Mm-hmm.
something that's always been confounding to me. Like, if I know that I've only got likely 6 months left, let's say,
Yeah.
and I'm to the point that I'm on the downward slope. This isn't what I want for myself. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to be in a state where I don't have my cognitive faculties, or I don't have any of my physical faculties, and I'm in a state of acute suffering. Why would it not be my choice as a human to be able to say, okay, let's just do this now before my family has to go through watching me? I have to go through all of this suffering that's unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't I get to have this as a choice for me? And the only logical reason, and it's not even logical, that people come up with is it's a sin.
Why?
Right. God said.
No,
If I don't believe in God, then why is that a good reason for you to legislate that I don't have a choice on how?
Well, their
to
argument
end my
is
life
you can't play God. God decides when you're going to die. And my response to that is, okay, have you had any surgery or taken any medicine? Are you
Right.
even going to the doctor? If you get sick, just let God do what God wants to do. If
Mm-hmm.
it's your time, he'll take you out. No, they don't do that. Only the fringe elements of wackos don't go to doctors. But Christians who would say, I don't have that choice, if they get cancer, they're going to get chemo.
Yeah.
They're going to have surgery. They're playing God every fucking day. And so that's a terribly invalid argument.
Yeah. Well, they would maybe say, well, that's to prolong my life so that I can be in service of God, and he gave me those opportunities. But even then, it doesn't make sense to me
No, you're
because,
still taking matters out of God's hands and
right.
putting them in someone else's.
And how do you justify using free will to create medicine and things that intervene in God's will, but you can't do other things that intervene in God's will? Like, how do you justify one and not the other?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me either. Like,
Mm-mm.
especially if it's an inevitability and it has to
Yeah,
do with dignity and suffering.
yeah, it's immoral to make someone suffer needlessly like that.
But yet it's justified to them.
Hmm.
It baffles me. It must infuriate you,
It
being
does.
involved in the work that you do.
Yeah, it does, and we need to keep talking about it to shoot down those arguments as much as we can, because the arguments do not hold water. They're not valid, and it's inhumane to we treat our pets better than we do our people.
Wow, valid point.
We
Yeah,
do.
it's a valid point.
If you got a dog that's suffering and you know the quality of that life is gone,
Hmm.
and that dog is just hanging on and hanging on, you're going to put that dog down because you have compassion for that dog.
Hmm.
Why don't we do that for our people?
That's a good question,
Mm.
because we see them as different, but
They have
why? Like
they
it
have
just like it brings
souls
up
or
a
something.
cascade of questions that
It
people don't really
does.
want to answer. They're
No.
all just predicated on presuppositions. Well, people are
Yeah.
different. Why? Like if you
Mm-mm.
follow the why trail,
It doesn't go very
it
far
does.
with
Yeah,
that.
you don't get to a really good answer when you follow the
Just
why trail. Because
just
I'm
cause,
special,
Shannon.
God damn it.
Just because.
Also, I'm right. I'm special and I'm right. That's why. All right, I'm gonna read the super chats. I am so good at YouTube. So good. I did have a rum though, and it's your fault. So if anybody has a
Are
problem with
there?
that, then it's David's fault. Take it
It's
up.
my fault. Are there? I don't see the chat. I guess I'm not able to see them, right? I don't
Oh, it
know.
would be on the live stream itself.
Oh, okay.
If
I
you have it
don't
open,
see.
it should be open on the sidebar. So
That's
the
okay.
first super chat was from Best Name Ever, and it says hugs from Sweden, CTFD, and hugs, best name ever. And then Melissa. Hi, Melissa. Thank you so much for streaming this discussion. And now I will pay attention to the side chat because I saw some tags, but then I didn't shut up and I kept talking. So I'm going to have to scroll.
Oh, you know what? I bet I can open it on my phone.
Oh, this is from Best Name Ever also. How does Dave spend his time now since he had to cancel so many of his travel plans? Online speeches instead? Question mark. Happy face. Just drinking. Just
Drinking as much as I can. It's That's been hard. I'll be honest. having to cancel all that stuff
Yeah.
was really difficult for me because I have a short window. I don't know how short it is.
Mm-hmm.
For most people, you say, "Oh, we'll reschedule next year," whatever. I don't know what next year's going to look like,
Right.
and travel gets increasingly more difficult. And so that was a real uh, punch to the gut to have to shut all that down. We had stuff booked up through July
Yeah.
and all over the world actually. So I think we will be able to reschedule most of it. What I have been doing is not a lot. I'm supposed to be working on my book, but I have the discipline of a gnat, and and I've had trouble focusing
Yeah.
because of all the shit going on.
Yeah.
But I really think I've kind of hit a better place in the last week or so mentally,
Oh, good.
and kind of turned the corner there. So I'm going to really buckle down and work hard on the book and doing more. I'm doing more of these. I've got a couple of more shows scheduled this week.
Oh,
Um,
good. Where else
some
are
of
you
the
going? Feel free to set them up. Where else are you going?
I'm going to talk with Eric. Uh,
Murphy?
Eric. Oh God, Merrick. Thank you. Jesus, be mad that I forgot his name.
Eric
Sorry,
Murphy,
Eric.
yeah.
I
We're
was
talking
just,
Ethan. He's a friend of mine,
I
yeah.
was, I was just texting him earlier. Sorry, Eric. Blame the bourbon, which
It's
Shannon
David's
insisted
fault.
I
Don't
have.
even. You started
Yeah.
this.
Um, and then I'm a couple of the places I was going to go in California this month wanted me to come on and do a Zoom meeting, a virtual meeting, because they're having their church, so to speak, online.
Hmm.
And so I'm doing a couple of those in the next 2 Sundays. So yeah, just trying to fill the gaps here and try to stay positive. That's really what I'm up to.
Okay, cool. All right, now I'll scroll back up and look again. Don't forget to at me, guys. I'm not good at just reading through everything and getting questions. I'm not. Have you gleaned that I'm really good at YouTube? I'm amazing at this.
I've heard that you
I'm
are.
so good. You're so lucky that you're here. All right. Dave's advice on 3 things we could do to improve quality of life. Oh, that's a really good question. Thank you. Hashtag. Who I
Three
should
things we
mod,
can
by the
do.
way, because it's here all the time. I'm gonna do that right now.
Oh, I see the chat now. I'm sorry. I'm
Yay!
best name ever. That's Christian. Hey, I didn't recognize your handle. What are you
The
doing up in the
dogs
middle of the
are.
night? It's
He
like
loves you.
it's the middle of the night over there.
I know.
She does love me. She's awesome. I love her too.
She is really awesome.
What was the question? Sorry.
We're both really good. We're really good at this. What's Dave's advice on 3 things that we could do to improve quality of life, or at least from your perspective? Like, what are 3 things you did, or 3 things that?
Improved quality of life is. I'm gonna turn my volume down on my phone so I don't echo.
Don't make an echo again because they blame me because they know that I'm bad at it. Don't you dare. I'm already in enough trouble.
Get me in trouble. Value your relationships. I think that's. I hate that these things sound like cliches, but I'm sorry. I think one thing that's going to come out of this quarantine time is that we're going to realize how valuable we are to each other because
Mhm.
we're not able to connect like we want to. And even though we get this kind of meeting, it's not the same as hugging a neck and being in the same room with someone. So to me, and I talk about moments a lot in my Dying Out Loud talk, seizing the moments. Carpe the fucking diem means that, as you know. So what that means to me is not just big moments like some awesome place like you're at the Roman Colosseum in Rome, and this is a huge moment, but the little moments that we miss, the conversations we have with people and the laughter and the tears and just having a drink together or whatever. Those are the things that I find make life really special. And so to enhance the quality of life, just focus on that. Don't miss that. Don't let that pass you by. And then 3 things. That's one thing. I don't know that I have
you,
two.
you got one.
That's a three.
Good
Three is
job.
such
We
a
did
big
it.
number. The
3
other
is
two
so
things.
many.
The other 2 things is drink more bourbon and smoke cigars. Okay, that's 3.
Do things you enjoy. That's right. Find things in your life that
Yes,
you
find
enjoy.
things you enjoy and
Yeah.
enjoy life. Life is short. Do the things you want to do.
Very cool. All right. So, oh, Mappity Babby sent a super chat. Mappity Babbity. I hope I did that right. Like, wow. Who I've seen all over the place. Hi, Mappity Babbity. I saw you on Jimmy's channel a lot.
Mabbity Babbity.
Mappity
Golly, there's a
Babbity.
lot
Isn't
of
that the
people on here.
best? It's really cool to say. Thanks to Dave so much, and to Shannon. Thank you, Mappity Babbity. I think I did it.
Oh.
All right. Oh, people say I'm fine. Enthusiasm counts for a lot, so that's good.
read this note from this woman named Bevan Jett at 9:45 p.m.
Oh my gosh, where is it? 9:45. Can you read it? Because I don't see a timestamp. Do I have to turn on
It says,
timestamps?
no,
We're
I'll
doing
read it.
so good. I just toggled timestamps.
She says, oh, well, hell, I lost it.
You told me.
Dave blows me away that even though he struggles with a lot more physically than he lets on, he almost never complains about it. Every now and then he gets frustrated and angry, but rarely.
Aww.
Bevan is my girlfriend that I live with. So she sees all the shit.
Oh. You should have her on sometime.
I offered to see if she wanted to join me on here. She's hiding in the chat room.
Well, hi. You could have come on too.
I know. She's amazing. She is so amazing.
This is the last chance if anybody wants to tag me, or I'm going to monopolize the end of this. This is your chance, guys. I'm giving you a chance. Don't say I didn't. Don't say it, because I did. And I also toggled timestamps, and now I can't see the rest of the chat. This is what people sometimes say, that they think that I drink on streams, and this is evidence that I don't, because this is what would happen. This is what it looks like for the record.
This is not normal. But isn't this more fun?
I'm like, am I though?
You don't normally drink on your show?
No, not normally. No, well, because I'm usually
talking about
like something that I really need to focus on in order to make sure that I'm articulating my points. And that is true. That's the case tonight also. But you started it when we were DMing earlier. And I was like, well, I'm not going to let you down. If you have bourbon already, then
good.
Let's do it.
See?
Let's party.
It's more fun.
Yeah, exactly. Allison. Hi, Allison. My grandma just passed away. She caused a lot of my PTSD. Any suggestions on how to move forward?
So I'm assuming grandma was a uber Christian and it was caused, when she says she caused a lot of her PTSD, that's from that, I'm assuming. How to move forward? Well, I think the best we can do, here's a quote I love. I talk about it a lot. It's Maya Angelou, and it simply says this. It says, do the best you can do until you know better. And then when you know better, do better. And that's my response to people when they say, how could you become an atheist when you once were a Christian? Well, I was doing the best I could then. And then I learned better, or at least I believe I did. And so now I'm trying to do better. And your grandma was doing the best she could do. That's what she knew. That's the water she swam in. That's the air she breathed. She most likely, unless she was a psychopath, and I wouldn't put that, I'm sorry for that. I don't mean to say that, but the only people that intentionally hurt other people are sociopaths, psychopaths, people that don't have empathy, that don't have compassion, Donald Trump. So unless she was that, then she was doing the best she could do. And it helps maybe to just recognize that, and to recognize that she was not intentionally hurting you. She was not wanting to cause you PTSD. She was doing what she genuinely felt was best for you, because she had a strong conviction that that was the right thing and the only thing, the only way to live, the only way to speak and talk and do. That's what evangelicals do. If we can let that go and realize that's just who they are, they're doing the best they can, and I'm not going to hold that over them as best I can, I'm going to let that go. That to me enables me to move on when people in my life have unintentionally hurt me in ways that I look at that and realize they would not do that on purpose. They're only doing what they think's best. And that's a better way to live for me. I hope that helps. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd also add that You don't have to forgive somebody. You don't owe anybody forgiveness.
Right.
Understanding that it's a difficult thing to grapple with because nobody, at least I hope, most people don't wake up in the morning thinking, how can I be a monster?
Right.
They
Donald
think
Trump.
that what they're doing is justified for whatever reason. Their logic is flawed. Their thinking is flawed. Their reasoning is flawed. They were potentially indoctrinated. They were potentially abused themselves.
Or
And they
mentally
came to
ill.
all the wrong conclusions. And as a result, have all the wrong behaviors and maybe don't even understand the consequences of those behaviors. And that's not an excuse because you should contemplate the consequences of your behaviors on
Mm-hmm.
other people. But not everybody does. So it's difficult when somebody passes away because we all look at concepts of justice as absolutes and we feel as though that's something that we're entitled to or is a requirement in order to move past a trauma. And justice isn't a requirement to move past a trauma. It doesn't even that won't take it away. It already happened. What needs to happen, unfortunately, and it sucks to grapple with, is that you need to do the hard work of identifying how it affected you, why it affected you, what the components of you are that are afflicted with that trauma. Identify them and then start doing the hard work of figuring out how to rebuild those aspects of you. So self-focus becomes very, very, very
Mm-hmm.
important with things like PTSD and any other sort of traumatic experiences. If you allow the focus to become external, whether it is on if you working on forgiving somebody because people push that and I think that's damaging, or focusing on consistently what they did to you and how it pertains to you and how it pertains to the relationship to them, particularly after they're gone and you can't even resolve that, you miss the point of identifying the components of you that were affected and how you can mitigate that damage. So I would say introspection becomes important.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
good.
so that would be my advice in that sort of situation. Ma- Mabbity Babbity again. Thanks, Mabbity Babbity.
I
Dave
love that name.
slipping Trump in with with defining sociopath gold. You got a fan. Mabbity Babbity's a fan.
I love
Also,
it.
it's the best name to say.
Mabbity Babbity.
All right. Ish, you said I could call you Ish, so I'm going to call you Ish because I tried so hard. And I must have mispronounced your name, and I'm sorry. Okay, I'll ask another one. Dave, what do you draw your strength from?
Jesus.
Jesus. That's going to get Jesus.
Jesus Christ.
My Lord and Savior.
Um, Gosh, that's I don't know, honestly. I don't really try to analyze that. I think I've always been a positive oriented person. I don't tend to dwell on negative things. I just kind of just figure it out and make it happen. So I'm not a worrier. I'm not inherently fearful. So I was just lucky to have that kind of a personality with this kind of diagnosis. And I know that I'm aware enough to know that that's not something I just conjured up. It's just like, okay, I didn't just make it happen and to self-talk myself into it. I think I draw my strength. I'm an extrovert and I get energy from people. And so I think I draw my strength from, or my positivity from being able to be sharing life with people and doing life with people that mean a great deal to me and that I mean a great deal to them, and even meeting new people like you, Shannon, and other people that I've met in the last year.
I'm
Incredible.
great.
You are great. You're great at YouTube too.
I'm so good at it. It's amazing.
Wait, are
I have a
you
new
are you
drink.
drinking a different drink now?
I brought
Oh my
another one for
God.
you.
So I don't know. I think that I think I draw my strength from people, and that's why this quarantine has been difficult for me because I've not been able to engage like I like to engage. I mean, I'm the person that talks to people in elevators. I just I just do. I like to engage people, and so I guess to put a label on that, I draw my strength from the human experience, from humanity, and I find that I'm a more moral person as a humanist slash atheist than I was as a Christian, because I don't draw distinctions between right and wrong people, good and bad people. People are people. They're all doing the best they can, except sociopath Donald Trump. And the rest of us are doing everything we can every day to make the world a better place. And that's what I draw strength from. I think humanity. I mean, we've seen it during this quarantine. You see messages. My daughter-in-law posted on Instagram. There's 7 o'clock in New York City. They live in Manhattan, and 7 o'clock every day they do this big cheer all over the city for the healthcare workers.
Yeah, for shift change.
And it just brought tears to my eyes. That's the best of humanity right there. And I get such strength in that. I just think that's beautiful.
Yeah, it is awesome. You see both the best and the worst in situations like these, and I tend to
Mm-hmm.
focus on the best.
Absolutely.
Like for example, like I'm in full quarantine. I'm gonna overshare because somebody told me that I should drink on this stream, so I'm gonna overshare about my real life now. Cheers! Like you guys, anybody who's watching this one is getting the inside track. So
Woohoo!
because I have MS and my kid has asthma, and my kid's also had croup, like
Mm.
close to 30 times. He had something called spasmodic croup. So anyway, he's got his lungs and his autoimmune system are great. So I've been on like 0% contact lockdown
Yeah,
for
yeah,
a
you're
month now, and I'm
hmm
like you. I'm an extrovert.
yeah,
I want to talk to people all the time. I'm very lucky I have this as a conduit to do that.
yeah,
But the thing that I am super grateful for is like a friend of mine just showed up today because she was out to get her groceries. Like she was doing her like weekly, she's got 3 kids of her own. She's in the military and so was her husband. She
hmm.
just showed up today with an iced coffee for me because she knows I love iced coffee, and left it on my deck because she knows I'm zero contact, and
Hmm.
just texted me and was like, I just want you to know that that was like wiped down, and I
That is
and
so
not only that,
cool.
but I've recently had a test. That's why I haven't been around for a long time. And like, so it's a safe coffee. Go get the coffee. I knew you'd want one, and I was already out. Like,
That's
somebody just
beautiful.
thought of me.
That's
Like,
beautiful. Yeah.
so like those are the things that I like to focus on. Those are the things that people do for each other. There's such a focus, especially in this internet world, on all the
Hmm.
negativity, all the reasons that we should find to hate each other,
Hmm.
all the reasons that we should ignore humanity in each other so that we can just identify our enemies and work on destroying them
Yeah.
because ideologically they differ from us. There's
Yeah.
so much of that and so little dialogue and so little willingness to not even meet in the middle, but just to even try to understand why somebody thinks the way that they do.
Yeah, we're more divided than we've ever been in this country
Yeah.
anyway, in my lifetime anyway, and it's sad. And it can really eat you up if you let it. You gotta take, like last weekend, I just shut down all news
It's a
feeds,
good
all
idea.
social media. I just took the weekend off. I said I can't take anymore. I can't read any more stories about what he's doing, what he's saying. I can't do it. And I felt better. I mean, there's only so much negativity. I mean, and yeah, I mean, some people say, well, don't you want to stay informed on the COVID and what's going on? What can I do about it? I can't change anything. I can't. Yeah, I'm sad about it. Yeah, it upsets me. Yeah, but what does me knowing more about it? How does that help me or anyone? At some point, I had to disengage, and so I just unplugged.
Yeah.
And we just need to do that more often. I think for me, it did. I'm too empathetic. I just feel everything way too much, and I had to just disengage.
I can relate to that. I can totally
Yeah.
relate to that. There's more questions. I'm ignoring them because I'm selfish. This is from Welder Surf. I won't keep you that much longer. I'm really sorry. Um, how do I handle the family members that try to use my grandparents' death to preach God to me without being mean to them? That sounds horrible. Like, why would somebody do that to you?
Jeez. How do I was looking for the question, so just ask it again because I can't find it.
Oh, gosh. Now I've got to scroll back up.
How do I react? How to respond to
How
my?
do I handle the family members that try to use my grandparents' death to preach God to me without being mean? I've encountered that myself, actually. Because,
Hmm.
yeah, I had a very God-fearing, amazing grandmother.
Oh, those are hard. Those are hard ones. It infuriates me that people use other people's deaths to evangelize.
Hmm.
I don't know how you respond to them. I mean, I think anything you're going to say to them is going to come across as being mean, uh, probably to them if you're direct, unless you just evade and go hide. I mean, which is an option. Um, but if you do try to interact with them and answer their questions or respond to them in any way, they're most likely going to take your response as an attack, although they're the ones attacking. But they're going to take it as a negative. They're going to take it as you being mean. But I'm way past the point of trying to tiptoe around people's feelings. I'm sorry. I just can't do it anymore. And there's too much at stake, in my opinion. So I just would be just as honest as you can be and be as kind as you can be. And just, if you don't want to engage them, just say, I don't think the way that you think. I disagree with your view on that. I respect your decision. I would ask you to respect mine, but we don't agree. And if they keep pushing, then ask them to produce the evidence for what they think they believe, because they can't. And I like the street epistemology method. You ask them questions into their own corner.
Hmm.
Back them into a corner with questions.
I have something to contribute to that as well. I don't know if it fits into the street epistemology view, but one of the things that I like to ask, who told me to drink? That I want everybody to think about this the next time somebody says that I'm drinking on stream.
I, I want to
Just
ask.
remember
I
this
just
moment when I
want to
can't even
ask you
formulate.
a question. I just want to ask you one
I
question.
want to ask you a question. So, what I like to do in these types of scenarios is say, are you asking me that question because you think it pertains to our relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a way of getting to the motivation of somebody
That's
that's
a good
asking
point.
that question, and also bringing it to their attention that this is something that is or potentially could have an effect on your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing wrong with asking somebody the motivations for a question that they're asking, because questions aren't just questions. They never are. They never are just
Yeah,
questions.
that's
They're
true. That's
imbued
true.
with the context that the question is being asked within. And that's not always considered. People like look at them flatly, and some people count on that because they're looking to trigger you. Somebody might be asking you that question because they're looking to elicit a conflict. They want a conflict with you because maybe they feel that they aren't as emotionally engaged with you as they want to be, or they feel disconnected with you and they don't want to be. And sometimes people have visceral emotional reactions to those sort of states. So, a good way
Yeah.
to disarm that and bring it back to a healthy place is say, how do you feel this question pertains to our relationship? That'll get you right to their motivations. And it's also the important part of the dialogue in those scenarios, because why you're worried is because you are afraid that your answer is going to affect your relationship. So if you put the person that's the underlying reason why you have anxiety about answering that question. So if you couch your dialogue and contextualize the dialogue as pertaining to your relationship, because that's what they're making it, then
Right. Right.
then you can maybe formulate a better answer and have a better quality of dialogue, instead of either having to evade or having to have an altercation, if
Yeah,
that
I
makes
think
sense.
that's
I
a
don't know,
great
what do you think,
point.
Dave?
Yeah, you're basically saying, asking them the right question is excellent, because it reminded me of a conversation I had with a Christian friend not long after my deconversion was made public, after everybody knew about it. They came with this question: how can you turn your back on God?
Right.
And I responded, are you really curious about that, or are you asking me that because it bothers you?
Right.
And their response was honest, because they said, well, yeah, it bothers me. And I said, why? And then we went down, and they got off of me, and we went down the road of the conversation of why it bothers them.
Mm-hmm.
And we came to the conclusion that it bothers them because they're afraid it could happen to them. And then they left me the fuck alone. But the reality is, in my whole 10 years as an ex-Christian, I've never had one Christian come to me with genuine curiosity and say, tell me about your process. Tell me about what happened. I really want to know. They don't want to know.
Scary question.
They don't want to know. Yeah, they're afraid.
They need to assume that you are in the never was a Christian, wanted to sin,
just
like didn't consider the facts sort of realm.
Yeah. Haven't ever read the Bible, something, I don't know.
Yeah, none of us ever have. None of us. And we didn't read it good enough. We didn't do it
the right way.
Good.
We didn't do it good enough.
We didn't do it as good or as we should have. Ricardo, thanks for the super chat, Ricardo. Thanks, Shannon, and thanks, David Warnock, for this great talk. A lot of food for thought. And good. Shannon, you rule at YouTube. Yeah, I do. I'm so good at it, guys.
You crush it.
I am nailing it. Hashtag nailed it.
One more drink and you will really be crushing it.
Oh my God, right? I'm like,
what is that you're drinking there? Is that a beer?
This is actually from a local distillery.
Yeah.
And it's called Coldstream. I'll promote them.
Nice.
And the reason I'm drinking it is because they do door-to-door delivery.
Yeah, we're going to check out our
on my deck, and it's amazing. It's a nice
we're going to a distillery this week to check it out and see if we can get some
support local.
Yeah, that's what I was talking to Bevan about tonight. We got to try to support local.
Yeah, well, a lot of local businesses are doing delivery now because
they have to stay alive.
Right, it's their only alternative.
Yeah, and I
what does frustrate me is that I have to pay via credit card and there's no tip option because I really wish that I could tip a delivery driver, and they're discouraging people handing cash, and also I can't go get more cash. So I really wish they had a tip option on their website. That would be my feedback for them.
I'm surprised they don't. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't. Well, they're just not. Nobody was ready for this, right? Like there is no.
Yeah.
Everything is just a new process that's being created on the fly for so many businesses and people just in general.
Everyone's scrambling just to figure out how to stay alive and how to survive. It's just unprecedented. Unprecedented.
Yeah. That's the word of 2020. If the word of 2020 isn't unprecedented, I don't know what the word would be. I have no idea.
Hey, we still have an election to get through. Oh my God. Oh my God.
I don't like.
We're traumatized even thinking about it. You know that, right? And this is April.
Yeah. And it's going to be Bernie versus Trump because Biden dropped out today.
Yep. Oh God. I need another drink.
Let's not even. All right. That'll be the end. So
okay.
Everybody can check out Dave's links in the description. Thank you for being here. I've kept you all long enough. The most important takeaway here is that I am really good at YouTube. I'm the best. I'm amazing. You're welcome. Awesome. I'm going to put on my end screen. Here's a fun thing about my channel. I don't have music on my end screen. So right now everybody's just looking at a purple thing. And they can't see us at all. And I'm just talking because it needs to happen for 20 seconds.
They're gone?
No, not yet. No, we're still live because I have to have this end card up because that's how good I am at YouTube. I don't have any end music. People just listen to me blather on until it's over. Anyway, bye.
Bye.